A car is one of the most expensive purchases we make. For some, it is the most expensive. And when we part with our hard-earned cash, we want our purchase to be, well, perfect.
Sadly, any complicated mechanical product can go wrong, and when it does, we, the customer, complain. And that means used car companies can have a fairly ongoing relationship with trading standards.
Imperial Cars generally has about 1,250 vehicles in stock and sells 800 a month over 4 sites. And that did mean dealing with different local authorities who sometimes interpret consumer law in different ways.
It was a minefield. From my point of view, we needed to ensure we were working to the letter of the law as best we could, but there was a level of inconsistency in the responses we were getting from the different authorities. And this really meant that I had little or no confidence in what we were doing was right.
In stepped the Trading Standards Manager of Portsmouth City Council and suggested that Imperial Cars opted for a primary authority agreement, where just one local authority is given the power to make decisions for the whole company, wherever they're based, and the company agrees to follow the council's advice.
Primary authority was the solution because it cemented a relationship between us and the business. The business were committed to act on the advice that we gave, and we were also committed to give the advice promptly back in return. So it was a cementing of a proper relationship between the two of us that both agreed that they would act on.
Since Imperial Cars started its primary authority agreement, complaints to trading standards have halved, and sorting out any problems is easier and less time-consuming and costly for everyone. Their website has been rated by Auto Network Retail as in the top 5 in the country, and their turnover looks like doubling in just 2 years. But primary authority is more than just about how to deal with trading standards. Imagine you're a massive nationwide company, and every time you need to put in, say, a fire door, a different fire authority would come up with a different interpretation of exactly what you'd need. It'd drive you mad.
But that's exactly what Home Retail Group faced, with more than 300 home-based stores, more than 700 Argos stores and others, a distribution centre, a call centre and so on.
Well, the problem we're up against is this. I mean, this is a standard fire door. It's got a nice sign on it, a vision panel as well, and it's got this foam and brush strip around the outside of it and an expanding material which will seal against fire. Now, we've got these fitted everywhere in the store. But they're only really necessary in areas where there's life risk. So areas where it leads into a fire exit or it has accommodation where people work or however.
And the problem you were facing was that some fire authorities would say, you've got to have this strip everywhere. Some would say you didn't?
Because they would see this as a standard fire door. So all of our doors around the business would look exactly the same as this. So the expectation is they would all be fitted with exactly the same thing, when it really isn't necessary in some cases.
An all-encompassing primary authority agreement with one fire service on what was really needed solved the problem.
The Home Retail Group can work very closely with Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service across the country, and there are many stores, and we can make sure our officers provide consistent advice, which means that other services will follow that advice and help Home Retail Group thrive and be safe across the country.
Of course, adjusting some door fittings or even fixing a new door in a home-based store shouldn't really be a problem. But primary authority gets rid of all that unnecessary uncertainty.
In Wednesbury, in the West Midlands, it's time to prepare for lunch. 40 meals for the residents of a care home run by Britain's third largest care home operator. HC1 has around 200 homes, but more importantly, that's around 10,000 individual residents whose safety and care is vital. Working with Wigan Council's environmental health officers as their primary authority, HC1 are now able to have regular advice on any issue and make sure that they can be clear on what they've got to achieve.
We are able now to have one consistent standard in all of the care homes, which we know is best practice. We're operating to a very high standard, and that standard is supported and endorsed by the primary authority. The saving to us as an organisation in terms of time managed alone has been enormous.
Because the law's not always black and white, there are some issues where one enforcing authority might require one thing and one enforcing authority might have taken a slightly different view on it. So with primary authority we've been able to help HC1 to develop all the policies and procedures, and so now other authorities don't need to look at those at all. For example, a short while ago some allergen legislation came out requiring that all caterers are now have to provide allergen information. And what happens is you can end up so you've got lots of different authorities giving slightly different information. We've been able to work with HC1, just include it now in their policies and procedures, and they've not had to speak to anybody else about it.
So primary authority has allowed a big company to know it's running its operations safely, but it's also saving it time and money. And that has to make sense, even if you're not a big company.
Friday morning at Alsaby Farm on the edge of the Lincolnshire Wolds. Here a team of 20 people produce Lincolnshire Poacher cheese made with unpasteurised milk.
And this is what the cheese looks like. It's hard and develops a granite-like rind after sitting around on shelves for up to 2 years. The trouble is, that sounds like, as one environmental health officer put it, an accident waiting to happen.
But in reality, it's how you make this cheese in conditions that are carefully monitored. But trying to convince individual environmental health officers of that can be challenging.
We particularly find that when we leave our area and we do farmers markets elsewhere, that EHOs see that we use raw milk to make our cheese and they're horrified and they want to treat us very differently. They think it's dangerous.
For one small cheesemaker to come to a primary authority agreement wouldn't be practical. So it was the National Association that decided to sort the problem out and offer a primary authority arrangement for all its members.
Specialist cheesemaking requires specialist knowledge, and we were confident that a primary authority relationship with a county council, and in our case we chose Cornwall, a county council with environmental health officers that have that knowledge, would help us to build a partnership and to drive consistency in enforcement as it relates to cheesemaking. And so what they've done is, in conjunction with us, produced assured advice which we can roll out across the country, which cheesemakers can use in the production of their cheese and have real confidence that they're doing the right thing.
Primary authority agreements are creating an environment in a whole variety of businesses where members of the public and communities are properly protected and businesses feel confident to invest and grow.
It's provided the consistency of approach that was missing, and that's given us the confidence to move forward as a business, and for us now the future looks great.
The greatest advantage is a business trading within a proper regulatory framework, and it will enable their business to grow effectively and properly.
It means that I don't spend as much of my time dealing with issues which may not be issues. It saves my managers time, which means they're not off the shop floor. They could be selling goods to customers instead of being engaged in conversations which they wouldn't necessarily have to have.
The Primary Authority scheme for fire and rescue services and for businesses is an excellent example of consistency and business support for enforcement authorities.
For the business commercially, there's a huge saving in our managers' time. There's also a commercial saving in the cost of training and so on. And for residents, it's the fact that they're having food delivered safely every day.
For the local authority, you can see that you're actually progressing with a business and making a difference.
It's really about cutting out red tape and bureaucracy so we can focus on making delicious cheese safely and letting everyone know that that's what we're doing.
The real benefit of primary authority is that our people can get on with the business of making cheese rather than worrying about whether or not they comply with legislation.
Primary authority isn't about loosening regulation, it's about delivering regulation better, so that Britain's industries, companies and entrepreneurs can succeed and grow, doing what they do best.